Hi there, Ed.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful day, and it's good to have
morning,
you.
yeah.
You were having a good time.
Yeah. So anyways, you're the one that asks the questions, and I'm the one that's supposed to answer them.
Yeah, that's right.
The best way I know how, in my opinion. Okay, well, make sure that's important.
Yeah, you can have, it's your opinion, and there can be different ways to do things.
Yeah, and different way of looking at my opinion, too.
Yeah, that's right. So that's cool.
And we have fun.
That's the most important part.
Fun. Everybody has fun.
Yeah, we're all having
fun. What do we got today? What are we talking about?
We have questions, and thank you all for sending questions. It's awesome. So I'm going to just get started. Let's get through some of these questions. Yeah. Someone's saying he's looking for a place to get help on a hocked up Flathead Mopar, not a Ford.
Dodge.
A Dodge, a Chrysler, or something?
Dodge. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know of anything, any performance information?
I don't know anything. They used to be years ago.
Yeah.
And I think Fenton made a set of headers for it one time, and I'm sure they don't anymore.
Okay.
It's hard to get a Fenton header now, even for a Flathead.
Yeah.
And I think that patent's right out on that, and several people are making it now, copying it. It still says Fenton on, but and the Dodge used to have some, but I don't think they ever had anything original either, as far as the Flathead. But I think Fenton did an Offenhauser, probably made some intake manifolds, and of course you could buy header flanges, but I think the header was a little difficult too, around the intake manifold and the heat part of the intake manifold and things, but yeah, they had headers on them.
Okay.
I remember when I was younger, maybe years ago, good for him, I think you always get a camshaft reground.
Right.
You can mill the head, and sometimes don't forget that you can mill the block too, lower the deck on the block.
Okay.
And make the pistons stick out a little bit more.
So you're talking about adding compression.
Yeah, that's just a little bit more compression than 6-to-1 or something.
Yeah.
That would always help. And of course, you split the manifold.
Right.
You can weld to the cast iron and put 2 outlets on it, and a couple 2-inch outlets would be good for it.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, people don't think about that sometimes in milling the head. I'm building the block itself.
Yeah. You can do both.
Yeah. And that makes the piston stick up instead of trying to mill the head. So even one of our cars, we used to race some years ago, and I built a special motor just to go to Denver, Colorado, which was all paid off.
Okay.
Paid me a few bucks that time. But anyways, because of light air, I built a special motor just to go to Denver.
Did you?
Yes. So I took the cylinder head and put it on the block with no pistons in it, and I reached up underneath the cylinder and scribed around the cylinder head, around the bore, on all of them, with the head just snugged on there.
Okay.
Then I took the head off of it, and turned the head upside down and milled that whole port, the block off, ground it off, so then the pistons would stick up out of the bore. Mm-hmm. And that raised the compression without messing around with a bunch of rocker arms and things like this. And that's what we did, yeah.
And with a Flathead, you don't have to worry about the valve clearance.
That's right, yeah.
So that's good.
We didn't have to either because we had a different head. But some of those things you can do to get compression. That's the most important, is compression.
Yeah. Yeah, carburetors can't do much if they don't have compression, right?
Yeah, and you can get probably somebody to make you an electronic ignition if you wanted that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, good luck.
Okay, so that was Michael. That's what we can answer. Periodic drag racer question. So would you put alcohol in a Flathead Ford?
I'd put alcohol in anything.
Okay.
Yeah. And because alcohol, of course, burns slow, real slow.
Okay.
So you could pour it on a birthday cake and just let it burn. You don't put gasoline on a birthday cake, you burn the whole house down. So that's the same way.
Okay.
It burns so slow, now you have to bump the timing up. And you have to put more fuel in it because it burns so slow.
Okay.
So sometimes in our race cars, we necessarily like that, but sometimes we don't, because it'll burn 20% more. So instead of having 80 jets in a carburetor, you might have to have 120s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Significant difference.
Okay. The rest of the circuits can almost be the same. And sometimes in some of our Holly carburetors, we actually drilled holes inside the carburetor, little teeny holes, takes the place of a jet. We still have a jet in it, not the return, but the gas flow things, and drill some holes in that and make that part of the jet. That's how big a jets we run. but it uses twice as much. So in our dirt track cars, we like to do that. It runs cold.
So that's why you do it.
Yes, the engine runs cold. It uses so much more fuel. So in a 40-lap race, you're almost out of gas or almost out of fuel.
Right.
And you lost all that weight over the rear wheels.
Mm-hmm.
You lost all that volume of weight for traction. Dragster's the same way. Yeah.
So
you just have to be kind of careful. It's fun to do, just experiment and stuff, but it runs the same.
yeah. Do you like aluminum engines better than steel engines or iron engines?
I'm getting so they're all aluminum now, so I don't have much of a choice.
Yeah.
But I do like the aluminum engines, of course.
Yeah.
You don't weigh as much like that, and it's easy to work on, and it's easy to machine. And I don't think they crack as much. Because all the cast iron motors, anything you get them hot and cold a couple of times, they'll crack.
Yeah. Yeah.
Crack across, you can't really fix them. Aluminum motor, you see some of those people that are cut in half almost
Yeah.
from explosion and stuff. They weld them all back together again and do some machining.
Yeah. You can repair them.
We can repair them. You say, yeah.
Okay.
They cost a lot more, but that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's a fair question.
Yeah.
Now, have you ever raced on the famous US 30? Do you know what the US 30 road is?
I don't know exactly where US 30 is. I've raced, and I won the race in north of Columbus, Ohio.
Okay.
Maybe that was about 15 or 20 miles north of Columbus. That might have been the 70s and 80s. There's a drag strip north of Columbus, Ohio.
Uh-huh.
Then I've raced in Thunder Valley and down by Columbus 2, where it was trees on both sides. And the track went down through the thing in a lower valley. I think there was probably bleachers on both sides of that hill. On both sides of the thing was in a normal valley.
Uh-huh.
It was in the trees. And we used to go down there and race our stock cars, 60 Chevys and stuff like that.
Okay.
I'm not sure where that US 30's at.
Yeah, and he said he thinks it's closed down now, but he's just wondering if you had a memory
Yeah,
of that.
there's.
And next question from someone named Phil. He's talking about shimming a 318 motor. So I know you can shim the valve springs in those, but when you rebuild them, but that's all he could think of. You know anything about that?
A 318 Dodge motor, I guess. Yeah. And to shim the thing, I don't know if he's what he wants to shim. You can, all motors you can shim, but I think he's worried about the only thing about a 318 Dodge, the later model 318, 340 now, is I know you have to be careful messing with the valve things. The valve guide is too tall. Yeah, so the top of the valve guide where you put your valve seal on, then if you do anything at all, that has a camshaft that retainer, valve retainer and the two locks, and the valve will go down and hit that seal.
Oh.
So the valve guide itself should be machined down and lower that seal down away from the movement of the valve.
I see.
I think that's one of the things we be careful with all the time at the shop over here.
Yeah. Okay.
Make sure that there's, because sometimes I don't know why. Well, it's a common sense. They want to make the guide as long as they can, so it don't wear out.
Does a properly tuned carbureted engine make less, more, or the same as fuel-injected engines?
You can't make more than a fuel-injected engine.
Okay.
A fuel injection engine, the correct one would be where it squirts fuel with electronic injectors. We're talking about that in each piston.
Yeah.
Gets the same amount of fuel metered and the same correct time. Instead of opening the carburetor and it gets sucked from the carburetor through the intake manifold, through into the cylinder head, past the valve,
Right.
circulating around there and getting it and then compressed and fired with a spark plug. By the time the gas is, maybe it's turned into rain or drops and not a mist like it should be, or a fog. We're talking about the fog. That's a good atomized fuel we call fog. An injector would do a lot better. That's why the new cars get a lot better gas mileage and a lot more horsepower, some of these new motors. So there's no comparison.
Next question, you mentioned using Rust-Oleum epoxy paint or something to the non-moving parts inside an engine. Would it also prevent any sludge or burnt sludge carbon buildup?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure it would. Yeah, we just talked about that during lunch hour.
Yeah.
Yeah, that there's some of those things we should go over a little bit more of this oiling system as far as painting the inside and the cylinder heads too, around the valve springs and guides and the return oils, and maybe we'll go over that one of these days. Maybe take a grinder and grind those passages smoother before you paint them. And the return on both ends of the cylinder head, especially the return, we're talking about a small block Chevy, any of them. If you follow the oil, don't follow the money, follow the oil. And where that oil returns anywhere is to polish that would oil return, and you could paint it, sure. And we painted a lot of our motors and epoxy. And then, say we were just on them, is when you get done epoxy, maybe we can epoxy some little screens in those return holes, so the valve train comes apart, keepers, guides, whatever else might break in small pieces, would stay up in that area, which wouldn't hurt anything up there, bounce around, but not go down into the crankshaft and into the oil pan and stuff.
Okay, and the reason you say that is, if a valve breaks, it sounds catastrophic already. Yeah,
it's already.
But maybe you're just doing
spring, a little ship of a spring or retainer or anything else under there. It gets hot and cold, it may break, and we find stuff.
But the screen is keeping it from getting into the sump, right?
Yeah, that's right. Okay. Screen off the holes, Okay.
So does a lower RPM, does that increase fuel mileage?
Depends on where it is. Of course it would.
Okay.
That'd be like driving a car 15 miles an hour down the road.
Yeah.
When they use any gas at all. The faster you go, the more gas it's going to use.
Okay. Now,
sure enough.
But if you have, let's say you have the same gearing, lower RPM is more fuel efficient generally than high RPM?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Sure, always. I remember an airplane. I wouldn't mind owning an airplane sometime.
Yeah.
I have. We're not going to talk about that.
Okay.
So
almost got into a story that was
almost got into a story we're not talking about.
Okay.
I have a registration on my desk over here for an airplane a few years ago. But I still kept the registrations in my desk. So we'll see what happens.
Okay, we'll see. Okay, so there's another question here about how intercoolers, and you might know something about intercoolers, increase horsepower and torque by lowering the temperatures using lower RPMs and increased air density. Okay.
Anytime you could increase air density, that would be like intercooler.
Yeah.
So you're doing cooling the air down, going in the intake manifold.
Yeah.
Instead of being anytime you pressurize something, it gets hot.
Right.
Air in a compressor, in a house air conditioner, it's hot.
Right.
So anytime you heat it up like a turbocharger, that's what we're talking about, turbocharger.
Yeah.
And run through an intercooler, of course, it's going to be better.
So because
air density is the same thing. Your car would runs a lot better almost before it rains.
Yeah.
Any car or truck or something starts, or just before it starts to rain, that air density and the humidity, it makes it run really good.
Okay. Yeah.
I remember one time we were in California, not this kind of do, we were in California in Orange County, and we were getting ready to race, and the clouds rolled in off the ocean.
Okay.
And we sat there, and we had all the instruments with us. And I think there's several gauges in a wooden box that we wouldn't show anybody. But anyway, we changed the jets 3 times on that car, and before we started it up.
Really?
Yeah. The air density drove in that much. They're come in with the ocean.
Yeah, the marine layer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And we won that race that night too.
Okay, so
and we had no problem.
So literally, with that humidity rolling in, you just knew by your own experience.
With the gauges, air density gauges. Oh yeah, air density and things told us exactly what to do.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you won the race.
Yeah, we won. Our car ran. It ran good.
Yeah. Very good.
So.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks for that question. There's a guy named David Visser that says he likes working on headers. He said most headers are wrong, I think, because the firing order of, say, a small block Chevy has 5 and 7 and then 8 and 4 firing right after each other.
That's right.
Okay, so we're so far on the same page. 2 on the driver's side, 2 on the passenger side, causing chaos in the collector.
That's right.
Okay? If you check the degrees of firing between all the cylinders, it goes something like 90, 180, 270, 90, etc. Okay, and I think David's right because of this. Some pipes need to be longer and some shorter to delay or speed up the reflective waves in the pipes to more finely tune for each cylinder.
Of course. I would like him to build a set of headers for me.
Okay. You like?
He sounds like he knows exactly what he's doing.
Okay.
And that's sometimes our motors. We changed the firing order, 5/7 swap.
Really?
In a Chevy V8, yeah. It's a Pontiac firing order. And we could buy a camshaft. Some years ago, of course, I think now they made it against the rules and that IMCA. We changed the firing order on it, changed it to, and then instead of drawing the same way with the intake, you're drawing air out of two cylinders right next to one another.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, so and we could buy a camshaft, and the car didn't sound like a Chevy after that. It sounded like a Pontiac.
I guess it
had more low end power.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was well worth it.
No,
I think the first guy to do that was that Superstock guy in Michigan. I can't remember his name right now, but he's the main guy, the fast guy. And he ran about 5-6 miles an hour faster than anybody in Superstock, maybe in the 90s. And he always kept his motor covered up. And then finally, sometime one of his crew members quit and went to work for the discount auto parts guy with his Superstocker. And the next couple of weeks, it was just as fast as the other guy.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Somehow the secret got out.
That secret got out, yeah. He should have paid his employee more money and it could have kept him.
That's right. Sometimes it pays to keep him on.
Yeah.
Huh?
He kept the motor covered up so you couldn't get a picture of it and follow the spark plug wires.
Yeah, and see what's going on.
That sounds like one of Smokey Munich's things or one of those guys like that.
Yeah.
Why can't I think of the guy's name in Michigan? But he would rule Superstock.
Okay.
And Camaros and stuff, big block Chevys for years. But I think he was some kind of a engineer too. One of the colleges or something, university.
Well, he thought it through, obviously.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Okay.
So good job. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Next question. What do you think about chamfering the bottom of the block so it doesn't wipe all the oil off? That's not a very clear question for me.
I can understand what he's doing a little bit. We chamfer the top of the cylinders.
Yeah.
When we get down bottom, we put a little 45-degree chamfer so we get the rings in it.
Yeah.
So it's not sharp. So the rings will slide down there from a ring compressor and install the rings. Mm-hmm. And the bottom, I don't know if I would. You can do what you want to do, and you might chamfer that.
Okay.
Yeah. On one of our motors, mine, they would have to be done. The bottom of that cylinder wall would be larger than the top. I would make the bottom of that cylinder wall, let's say 4-inch 30. I would make the bottom of the cylinder wall maybe 4-inch 32 or 33. And then 4-inch 30 at the top. That's exactly what I wanted. Because at the bottom, the piston just turns around and comes back up. It's got nothing to do with power.
Right.
It's just revolving. And all the power is made at the top of the cylinder, and you want the rings to be closed and sealed up good at the top.
Okay.
So with that chamfer on our motors, we'd probably get enough oil splashing around and not have to have a chamfer.
Okay.
I don't think I've ever bothered to turn the motor upside down and put a chamfer in the cylinders. Yeah. But it's a good idea. You can do whatever he wants to do.
Sure.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
But just try it.
Thank you, Golfy, for the question. He said Fords were originally made to run on alcohol, then with Rockefeller oil. He made them run on both fuel, like a flex fuel. You would adjust levers on the steering wheel for timing and fuel. Does Ed know anything about
That's
that?
a Model T?
Probably.
So you're talking about a Model T?
Original Ford, yeah.
They didn't have much oil in the first place in Model T.
No, so he was saying run on alcohol.
It could run on alcohol. It would be, and alcohol, again, is dry.
Okay.
It's not much. And then those days they had gasoline. It was regular gas, and regular is oil.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then no lead is lead graphite. This is oil, and they put that in the gasoline to lubricate the gasoline. For years, that's what we had, regular gas.
Yeah.
Until the government got after them, saying that you smoke too much, and you drank too much, or you smoked too much. I don't know what you're doing, but you still, as long as you can still drive, I guess, I suppose. But anyways, and they took the regular gas away, which was lubricated. But I'm sure they could run alcohol, a lot of cars, and they would run diesel fuel. And they had some of that mixture there someplace. Again, some of the tractors, I remember my uncle had a tractor, international tractor, maybe a 49 or 51 or something, that you started up on gasoline and ran down the fields with diesel fuel.
Yeah.
Switched it over. But the Model Ts had the spark and the gas levers on the steering wheel.
Yeah.
So you had to retard the timing a little bit so it'd start.
Yeah.
Then you could crank it by hand a lot of times with the timing retarded so you didn't break your arm or hurt you.
Yeah.
So that's all part of that, yeah.
Yeah, and if I remember my history right, I think even in those very, very early days, gasoline was not very...
wasn't good.
Yeah, it was very low octane.
Oh, yeah, totally low octane.
Very low. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks for that question.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah.
Here we go. Back in the early 90s, there was a guy from somewhere in the eastern Massachusetts somewhere who advertised in hot rod and carcraft magazines who sold a kit to drop in a 472 or 500 cubic inch caddy engine and tranny into late 70s or early 80s Chevy Malibu. Wow, that'd be quite something. You could find old caddies for donor vehicles sitting in people's backyards for free, and then there you had a 13-second quarter-mile car. So,
and they usually the Cadillacs were low mileage.
right?
Yeah, by the time the motor would, they never drove the car. They would maybe normal people drove it to Sunday church.
Right.
And they drove the horse and buggy or whatever they had, car, Chevy or something, the grocery store.
Yeah.
And back and forth to work, but the car just sat there until it rusted apart.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that even the Cadillac hearse we used to service the stuff at the store, the tailpipes were all rusted up.
Yeah.
And sometimes the muffler was rusted shut. The Cadillac would only go like 25 miles an hour. And they put a muffler on it, and then it would go back up like it was normal before. But they were low mileage motors, and it was excellent. I never knew of anybody to put a kit on it, but it sounds like a good idea.
Yeah.
They'd probably give you some front mounts.
Yeah.
And maybe a rear mount. I don't know what. Maybe I don't think you make your own exhaust, but there wasn't much conversion.
Yeah, didn't have to
I mean, I don't think you had to do anything with the oil pans and things. And even the Chevy truck that we put the 500 Cadillac in it, we took the torch and cut the front cross member, just a little chunk out of it, to miss the Cadillac oil filter.
Oh, okay.
Because that oil filter is right up front and right with the front core support.
I see.
But it was in the front cross member.
Mm-hmm.
And we used to take a couple pieces of steel, maybe 2 inches by 1/4 inch, 6 inches long, and bend them and weld them on the frame. That made your motor mounts right there on the Chevy truck. Yeah. So that's fairly simple, cheap. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So you didn't have to need much. And the transmission, whatever transmission you had, it had a rear motor anyway. Yeah. More mount. Yeah. So it's all good.
It's just another reminder to be thankful. In Arizona, we don't have the rust problems.
Oh, I know.
That they have.
That's why I live here.
Yeah. Because in Massachusetts, they would get a lot of salt and everything on the road.
Sometimes I feel like, even in my old age, I feel like I have some high school friends that have some cars, I think. Mm-hmm. I need to maybe have some cars he's had for a long time. And I think, and so I feel sometimes it'd be interesting to go back there and see if he wants to sell some.
Yeah.
But I'm afraid to buy them.
Yeah, exactly.
I really was afraid to buy them and get out here. And a friend of mine one time, it wasn't too long ago, he bought a Corvette, even a Corvette's a fiberglass car. Yeah. And he bought it off the East Coast on the internet and eBay. And I said, well, what'd you pay? And he says, what was it when you got it here? And he says, it was about $5,000 to $10,000 worse than I thought. Right. I said, wouldn't you get on an airplane and fly back to wherever you bought it from and look at it and either buy it or not before you bought a car it took you $5,000 to $10,000 to fix up the frame. It was all rusted and the rest of anything metal. Yeah. I says, it can't be. And another thing, I just got a rear end the other day out of a Pontiac shipped to me. They were really good to me. And this junkyard in Minnesota. Okay. And they were good people, and I love them. We get along forever and ever. But they sent me a rear end third member for a Pontiac, And I took it the other day, and it was rusted. It looked like the car had been sitting in a river.
Oh, no.
And that was just the gear oil in the rear end. It wasn't out in the rain. It was the third member. And I think the original third member of a 57 Pontiac. But the bottom of the gears were rusted a little bit. I think I could save them.
Yeah.
But it was just shocking.
Yeah, we're not used to that here.
We're not used to that gear oil rusting.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I don't think it was full. There's no way to get water in it. It ain't to set in the creek bed or something.
Yeah.
But some of those things, thank God we got some good junkyards here, some good parts.
Yeah.
We really do. It's
Yeah.
a good place to live. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a hot rodder.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's right.
Okay.
So now this has come up more than once. I'm glad we're getting to it here. Does Ed have any recollection to the part number for the main bearings that allow you to fit a 350 crankshaft into a 400 main journal?
I don't have.
You don't know the
I
part
could, but I have a set laying back here.
number.
Yeah. So I don't know if they're in a box. I don't think they're in a box. They could be in a box.
Yeah.
But I know exactly where they're at. Yeah.
So just for people that maybe didn't watch earlier conversations we had, why would you put a 350 crank into a 400 motor?
Big bore and short stroke.
Okay.
That makes it a 377 motor.
Okay.
And it depends what you're doing, what you want. Yeah.
Yeah, I got you. Next question is, I heard Plastigage leaves residue that needs to be cleaned off. Is that true?
Anytime you do anything with a measure, you need to clean it
Yeah.
one more time.
Okay.
And I don't hear that so much. I don't hear of taking your motor when it gets done machining.
Uh-huh.
You're ready to put it together, soap and water, hot water and soap to wash the motor.
Okay.
And we went over that before of demagnetizing the same thing.
Yeah.
I'd be more worried about demagnetizing your motor. In other words, putting the magnet on it and leaving the magnet on and pull the thing off and pull that magnetic stuff, fields off the block.
Right.
Because if anytime you run that block on a boring bar or something that's got an electric motor, run to it, and a variable speed motor especially, it'll magnetize the motor.
Right.
And then you get the little particles, you can't blow them off there because they're magnetized on there.
Can you even see them all?
You can't see, what?
Can you see them all?
No, you can't see them. No, not at all.
So you don't even know they're there?
No.
Okay. So
and we sometimes, our people always do it. I watch them, and the kids over here, the younger people building motors. I got some couple guys over here that build motors, and they're so picky. It looks like a bunch of young doctors. And they're over there oiling the cylinders with motor oil or transmission oil, letting them set for a while, and taking toilet paper and paper towels and wiping that stuff out of the bores, out of the grooves in there. The oil makes that stuff come out of the bores, the grooves in the machine part of it.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, even the grooves in the bore. It takes that oil, the little particles come loose from there and float the surface. Then you take a white paper towel and wipe that stuff out of there, and you supply so much stuff you can get out of there, and hot water, soap.
Yeah, because when I've seen a block come out from machining, it looks perfect.
Oh, yeah.
But it's not.
Dirty.
It's dirty.
It's really dirty.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, good.
So that's a good idea.
Yep. What's the difference between a 327 crankshaft and a 350 crankshaft?
327 crankshaft is a steel crank.
Okay.
And then a 350 crank could be a steel or a cast iron.
I see.
Yeah, 442 is a steel crank, cast iron crank.
Okay.
Things like this. And so one's cast and the other one's steel. So the stroke's different. Yeah, because they both, 327 and 350 is a 4-inch bore.
Okay, so then the 327 has a shorter stroke.
Yeah, and 327 would have a small journal, right? A 2-inch journal on it.
Okay.
And 350 is 2 1/4.
Okay.
So the bearings are wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Those are significant differences.
Yeah, there's a big difference there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the counterweights are different, or they balance different. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. This fine old truck. Ed, what do you think about running a high volume pump with thinner oil? I polished the inside of my 355. All the oil passages have enlarged and massaged. All the oil and coolant passages are matched and in some places enlarged. But I still need to groove the distributor. I went with a high volume Melling Shark tooth pump that I set the pressure to standard and then massaged the internals. So
Wow.
What do you think of all that?
He's been doing his homework.
Yeah.
Yeah, sounds like he's, yeah. And then if you did that, I would want a little bigger pan, maybe a little deeper. If you're going to put that high volume pump in it, it's going to pump more oil.
Yeah.
It's going to go up in the engine and stay up there.
Mm-hmm.
You need to get your returns all cleaned up.
Yeah.
But the oil hole down by where the oil comes back to the rear of the motor and goes down past the head gasket, down past that oil, past the distributor.
Mm-hmm.
Clean those holes all up, get the oil back down in there. But I would probably put a pan on if you could get maybe a 2-inch deeper pan, not necessarily wider or anything, but just 2 inches deeper. Cut a couple more quarts of oil in and keep the oil cool.
Right.
By having a bigger volume, yeah.
Right. Okay.
And you'll be fine. I'm sure he looks like he's done.
Yeah.
Probably have a good motor, yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, and regarding the big oil pan, would the amount of oil matter at all with windage?
Of course it does. You got a bigger volume there splashing around.
Yeah.
Are you going to drag race the thing, or are you going to stop real quick? Well, you put a windage tray on it. If you're just driving around, there's no reason to have a windage tray.
Okay.
But don't hurt anything with that big a volume. I think one of the companies makes a little tin plate that bolts in the oil pump. It's just a little tin plate that's got a couple of holes in it. It fits right in the back of the pan. So if you accelerate a lot, that oil volume won't go up the back of the pan and get up into the crankshaft. We don't see that. We used to see them a lot. I think maybe Chevrolet did it originally. I think some of the Chevrolet pans maybe had that little rib in the pan. But yeah, I would have that windage tray, especially that little deflector, so the oil don't go up the back of the pan when you accelerate. Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good deal. Okay, we're going to jump back to the. We talked about using smaller torque converters in transmissions.
Good.
And we mentioned the Vega converter. And this person claims, anyway, that after 300 horsepower, you flatten the fins on that small little
Absolutely.
thing. Yeah?
Absolutely.
Okay.
They were a cheap converter, but it lasted a little bit.
Okay.
And those days they were cheap. You could buy them and put them in there. And the same way with the Mazda converter a little bit. And we went to the Buick Opel converter a little bit. That was a little bit better because it was a little bit smaller.
Okay.
But any of those, you flatten the fins on them. You're careful, yeah.
So.
But then you had to went to Hughes and bought a nice converter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Hughes needs to be a sponsor.
I mean, who's got my head?
Yeah.
Somebody didn't. I think he bought me a shirt, and I didn't.
He did buy you a shirt.
Yeah. Good for him. Maybe I should need a sweater.
Yeah.
It gets much colder here. They're my friends. So we have to be good to them. They're good to us.
That's right. That's so. Oh, you're funny. I love it. So, okay, so in other words, if after 300 horsepower you flatten the fins, that's not a good solution.
It was just, you won't go anywhere then. You ruin the converter. You just flatten them all out.
Yeah.
We used to have some of our Oldsmobiles, and years ago, when you took the converter apart, because the early Oldsmobile, like the B&M Hydro, if anybody remembers that or heard the slang word of that, but that's what it was. But actually, the converter unbolted 32 bolts away from the flywheel. And they do that today.
Okay.
You guys can buy converters. And then you took that whole piece in and had the fins in them, and we took it over to somebody and they furnace brazed them. So put it in a furnace, hot, certain temperatures, and then just took brass and brazed all around them, and just put it on and it melted. And it brazed them equally, all of them.
Okay.
And it just brushed it on there a little bit, and then they wouldn't flatten out.
That was strengthening.
What?
Was that strengthening them?
Well, strengthen them, yeah, but they'd be brazed right in the groove instead of just bent in. Converters just slid it in and bent over.
I see.
Yeah, anything at all would straighten them right out.
Okay.
Yeah,
You can tell I haven't seen the inside of one.
Yeah, right, yeah, we should.
They're always assembled. I never see them in pieces.
I have one over there, I'll show you.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of interesting.
Good. All right. Now, someone named Nick said, I have a question for the wizard. What's his thoughts on knurled valve guides? Is it worth it? How long does it last?
Knurled valve guides is okay. I'd want a little bit of knurl on them because it helps oil them.
Okay.
You get oil down past the valve guide a little bit, and down it lubricates the valve. But sure enough, you're removing the metal. It's like our new valve guides we use all the time. We shop valve guides a lot, and we like to listen. Anybody's talking about valve guide, we want to listen. Because actually it goes back in the reconditioning heads, there's really nothing wrong with the valve seat. The valve seat will last forever, but the valve guide wears out and the valve slops back and forth, and now you got a valve trying to seat on a 45-degree seat, and it's bouncing around with the valve guide loose and bouncing around, and finally it seats there, and it would work right through the head. I've seen some valve guides that sunk in the head 1/4 inch just from wearing out. And they still seem to seat and run pretty good.
Yeah.
But anyways, that guide. So now our new valve, that's why we already had, when we do change the valve guides.
Okay.
And our valve guides does have a little ream in it that helps oil them. And of course, all the new valve guides are made out of a lot better material than that old original head, the cast iron head.
Yeah.
So it's like having one real coarse and one real fine. And we're putting the fine new guides in it straight like they're supposed to be. So that's why we do it.
Okay, what is knurling?
Knurling is a tool that actually like etches it like a sharp wheel that you'd rotate down there and put grooves in it. It smashes the surface of this thin pipe or the valve guide. So once it smashes it, it makes it smaller. Okay. Then you need to ream it with the original ream. So you've removed a lot of material, but the material you left in there is cracked anyways, because you already run that sharp wheel in there or sharp object to crush that material.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, I didn't know anything about that.
Yeah. So that's, someday you're going to you'll know everything.
No.
You'll get into engine rebuilding one of these days.
I might have to do that.
Yeah, you might, yeah. Yeah.
I'm trying to at least learn half of what you've forgotten.
Okay. That would be good.
All right.
Maybe somebody will pay you
that's
for what you know then. Nobody's paid me for what they know.
That's right.
They just paid me for what I did.
Yeah, that's right. That's
yeah,
right.
if they paid me for what I knew, maybe they couldn't afford me.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know how to say that. I got paid well.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
I did, yeah.
Got some good evidence of that.
Yeah, I think they have some.
That's right. No other symptoms exist other than steam out of one pipe. It's a brand new cap. I've heard thermostats being bad out of the box, especially these days. What about caps? So he's talking about radiator cap, I think.
I don't know if I've ever seen a radiator cap be bad to where it's stuck closed and would not open. You shouldn't have that much steam in the first place. Mm-hmm. But if you could have water, and the only reason you put radiator cap on in the first place is to keep the boiling point down.
Right.
The higher the cap, the radiator pressure in the radiator, the more it will not boil.
Right. It boils at a higher temperature.
Higher temperature.
Yeah.
That's why some NASCARs have got all their radiator hoses are screwed on fittings.
Yeah.
They're not slide on with no rubber fittings or anything. They're threaded on.
Right.
Then they have a big cap on it and a better special radiator too.
Yeah.
That they might hold 20, 30 pounds of pressure in the radiator. If it's stuck closed, it would be closed. It would not open and relieve that pressure at 12 pounds.
Right.
It wouldn't burp the pressure on and go down in a recovery cap.
Right.
So that would be a bad radiator cap, of course.
Yeah.
On a thermostat, maybe.
So if you had situations where a super high pressure cooling system would blow a head gasket?
Sure it will.
Okay.
Sure, because anything pressure would blow a head gasket, yeah.
Okay.
Undue pressure, yeah.
Okay. So
if that answers his question, he had a couple different subjects in there that were messing with the pressure of the radiator cap and the thermostat and the radiator and the hoses and fittings and all come together there. And our Arizona chrome, we don't hear anything about chrome and crankshafts either. So crankshafts are pretty cheap nowadays.
Yeah.
And we would take our crankshafts down and they would, at the machine shop, quite a machine shop then, and so they would turn the crank maybe 10 under and chrome it back to put 12 thousandths chrome on it.
Okay.
So now the throws were, as hard as a chrome bumper. And you could spin a bearing and it wouldn't even hurt it. But they would turn that crankshaft down the chrome down to exactly standard. And maybe groove the mains too. Put grooves in the mains so they oiled all the time. And made a nice crankshaft that almost lasts forever.
Wow.
But it was as hard as a chrome bumper. And be careful with the bearings then.
Right.
Yeah. So they were awesome.
So the chroming, was it precise enough you didn't have to go back and machine it after
They
that?
did, yeah.
They did.
So say they got 10 under,
Yeah.
put 12 thousandths worth of chrome on it,
And then just take a touch
and
off.
then they just touch it back to 10 under or whatever you wanted,
Uh-huh.
and polish it up. I'm not to polish it.
Okay.
And then again, when we did that, I just brought back my mind that we used to groove the mains too. You don't hear that much anymore.
No.
So it grooves all the way around, and now we can buy bearings that are grooved all the way around, the main bearings.
Right.
And then they did a lot of those crankshafts, yeah.
Huh.
But they had that little 4-cylinder Chevy motor that midget.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I keep thinking about this chrome crankshaft, which is kind of blowing my mind. Would that be pretty hard to machine? Is it so?
Oh yeah, sure. It's chrome.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a fun conversation.
Okay.
Well, thank you,
Then
Ed.
we have a crankshaft.
We're gonna have to.
Maybe get a whole session on crankshafts.
We're gonna do a show about crankshafts. We
can go down here and
yeah.
we'll show you some good crankshafts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, we're going to start learning the differences. If you just see one at a glance, they all look the same.
Yeah.
But you learn a little bit more of the detail, and it's worth it. And we'll be able to teach more.
One of the crankshafts we were out to look over at, I've got a brand new John Force 500 cubic inch Hemi crank.
500? Oh, wow.
Yeah, 500 cubic inch, like a funny car crank sitting over here.
Do you really?
And we can look at that and inspect it a little bit.
Okay, there's a
Be
little
fun.
tease for you guys. We're going to do a show on
yeah.
crankshafts.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Well, thanks, Ed. This is a lot of fun. Thank you all for joining us. And we sure
Okay.
do.
Have a good day.
Yeah.
Enjoy yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yes, awesome.
Okay.
Thanks. We'll see you again on the next one.
Yeah.